Good morning. Welcome back to Ice Flower Crochet. This is podcast number 8. I'm Vicky. I live in Hokkaido in Japan, but I'm English. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Ice Flower Crochet, and you can find me on Ravelry as Ice Flower Vicky. So the last podcast I did was 10 non-yarny things about me that got a bit yarny, and today I'm going back to the regular podcast, what I've been doing, what I've been up to. So in non-crochet, non-yarny things, this year I decided I need to get out of the house more and work more, walk more, not work, well, work more. And I've been doing that, but I have to say the last few days I haven't been out. It's either been bad weather, my regular work started up again, and I'm going to have to learn how to find time to get out of the house and walk for reasonable distances on a work day. It's also been really, really cold. We had a high of like -8 Celsius yesterday, and to be honest, that's just too uncomfortable for me to go out. Particularly, it was very windy yesterday as well. But I am going to put some photographs, or there will have been some photographs at the beginning of my latest walks, and yeah. So watch this space, and hopefully, as the months go by, you'll see the weather improve. So back to my regular podcast pattern. So first of all, I'm going to show you what I've finished. Ta-da! Look at this. This has been on the go for longer than I dare confess to, over a year. It was made in exchange for some absolutely beautiful pictures that my friend Laura drew for me, focusing on the 4 seasons of my garden with a very strong fantasy element. They're absolutely beautiful, and one day I'll put them up on a podcast and show you. At the moment I've got them put away in a file and I want to get them professionally framed, but I felt guilty about doing that because I hadn't finished the blanket that we'd agreed to swap. So I finished, and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm very pleased with it. It's called Kissing Circles. The actual design isn't called Kissing Circles. I got it on Ravelry, and I've got the pattern here. It was a paid pattern, and it was called Circles in Circles. And because I've got only got the print, it was in like a collection. It doesn't actually say who did it, so I'll put it on at the bottom. I'll find out properly. And the original one was meant for a smaller gauge. It was a silk and merino wool blend, very luxurious and beautiful. And the designer had also gone into the back loop of every round, and I just thought I couldn't do that and count at the same time. So I just decided to make mine flat rather than ridged. But apart from that, it's exactly the same. So I used a 4mm hook, and it's mostly Stylecraft Special DK. There's some glittery green, which I think is glitz, I'm not sure, and some glittery white, which might be glitz as well, DK. So I'm very, very pleased with it. I decided not to even up the edges, you know, not to square up the edges, so there's all these lovely lobes and circles hanging down, and I'm very pleased with it, and I hope my friend will like it. And having finally podcasted it, because I actually finished this a week ago, I'm going to send it to her. Luckily, well, not luckily for her, not luckily for any of us because it's cold, but we are in midwinter, so she's going to get several months of use out of it, I'm pleased to say. And I'm very relieved that it's finally finished and my debt to her is paid. But yeah, I'm thrilled. It's big. It goes, my circle is 160 centimetres wide, so it's about 165. It hangs over slightly each side, and it's about as deep. No, it's not as deep as that. I don't know. Anyway, it's big. So that was my main finished project. And then also, because it took so very long for me to finish this, far longer than it should have done, I felt guilty, so I decided to make her a cowl. So I'm going to send that as a I'm sorry I can't get my act together present. Put it on. So you can have it high and cover everything up, or you can just pull it down roughly, or you could fold it if you wanted a neater cowl. This is inspired by the Patchwork Heart. Ugh, now I've got fluffy hair. She makes a lot of cowls and puts them up on her Instagram and Facebook feeds, and she uses beautiful colour combinations, but I used the same yarn that was in the blanket, so I hope that my friend will enjoy that. So they're going to go out. I'm podcasting now so that I can go to the post office, it being a Friday, and get it out before the weekend. That's my next plan. So those are the two things I've completed. Excuse me. And works in progress. Well, Shockwaves, which has also been going on since September, which is far too long. I've been so busy. The autumn and New Year, and well, even going on to April is the busiest time for my work, so I'm having a bit of trouble squeezing in yarn time. But I did have quite a lot of time over the holidays, and Shockwaves has got quite a lot deeper. See? So it's about, I don't know how many centimetres deep now, 60 odd. And this is the width of the blanket. The length, I'm doing the waves in the length. So each row takes a long time to do, but you know, more of the blanket is completed with each row, so it does grow. We've decided we're going to fringe the ends, so I don't have to do any sewing in. I did get myself into a mess. There was a delay on this. I had to count and count and count and count stitches, and it's still about one stitch out, but I've given up and fudged it. You see this row here, what I'm doing to decide the colour of the waves, I've got 6 colours in the blanket. I've got white, silver, grey. Do I have silver? Yeah, white, silver, grey, mustard, charcoal, it's called graphite. And what's the other one? Black. So what I do when I get to the thin single crochet line is I roll a dice, and then that tells me what colour the line is going to be. So when I got to this section here, I got 2 white single crochets in a row, but I stopped for the night and left a day between it. And I think what happened was when I picked it up, I started from the wrong end, you know, I started on the wrong side. So you can't see, it doesn't matter on the white section. But when I came to crochet the next coloured line, I don't know whether you can see on this side, the lines are almost 3D, they stick out, there's a somewhat slight ridge and they're bigger. And on the back side, can you see the difference if I try and hold it like that? On the back side, it's a finer line and sort of dimples in. So I did 2 rows more and realised that my innies were on my outie row. So I had to rip it all back. And then I also realised that the wave pattern was a stitch out, and I don't know, I got myself into a real mess. And it probably would have been quicker just to rip back all the white and start again, but I didn't. I ripped back to here, and then I ripped back this row twice. And then finally I found my rhythm and got going again. So if I hadn't mucked that up, I would be probably this much further on. But you could really see the difference, and I wasn't going to let such a big mistake go by. So it's back on the proper way, and what I've done to stop myself doing that again, because I thought I would always know that I didn't need reminding, but obviously I do. I've put a green stitch marker, just a cheapy one, in on the side that the thin crochet has to start on. So it has to start at this end with this marker facing me, like that. And that way it'll stick out, because this is actually the back, but the back becomes the front. Oh, it doesn't really matter when you put it up on a you know, when you put it up, it won't matter. It will depend on which you like, but to me this is now the front. So that was a bit of a lost 3 days. Be cross with myself about that, but live and learn. But it's making beautiful progress. It's nice and warm to sit under now. It's proper blanket size. I think this would make a very nice scarf. I might do some scarves in it when this is finished. And the other commission I've got on the go at the moment is Big Blue 2. So a lady saw the first Big Blue blanket I made, and she asked if I would make one for her, and I said yes. So this one, but she said she wanted some grey in it as well, so blue, white and grey. So this is as far as I've got. It's relatively big. She wants it to be a big blanket though, so it's, I don't know, not halfway done, maybe a third done. And I've done most of the ends. I haven't done the last few rows worth of ends, and I decided I'm leaving that one end in the centre to show front and back. And it doesn't actually matter, there's no front and back to the blanket, except that I'm sewing in my ends on the on this side. So where the yarn comes out, that's the side I'm sewing them in. It doesn't actually make any difference to how it looks. And the fun part of this one, I'll put my face back in the camera. I've got a friend whose name is Heather, and she decided to take up a challenge to learn something that she couldn't do, that she'd never done before. And she's going to continue this challenge for the next year, and she's going to do a variety of things. But the first one she decided to do was learn to crochet and make a crochet blanket. So she's picked it up really fast. I mean, crochet is fairly simple, but you know, you do have to apply your mind to it at the beginning. And she's of a mathematical brain set. So she's started weighing how much yarn each round takes. And she asked me to join in, so I've been sending her my data because she thinks that she's plotting it on a graph, and beyond this I can't explain it anymore because she's lost me, but she reckons that no matter what weight of yarn you use, no matter what tension you have or what gauge, the amount of yarn you use for each row should go up in a predictable manner. So you'll be able to say, oh, if I make a blanket 85 rows, then on the 85th row I should need X% more yarn than I needed on the first row, or something. So I'm blindly sending her my data, but it's very interesting, and I find it great that anybody who crochets can bend it to their interests. So, you know, her blanket, which is pretty and warm, she's chosen a lovely pack of colours that are all very berry-ish and leaf-ish, very natural and warm, cosy colours. It's growing apace, and so she's going to get a beautiful, decorative, practical item out of it, but she's also using it as a maths project. So I find that brilliant, you know, like, yeah, you know, crochet doesn't have to be fluffy and cute. So that's that one. So they're my two main works in progress, and I'm attempting to do work on alternate days on them, and it's going reasonably well at the moment. And the last couple of years I've seen people doing temperature blankets, so this is now a new project for me. So I've decided to do a temperature blanket for my area. And I've only actually done 10 days worth, and then I was doing the blue blanket and the Shockwaves, and work started, so I'm now a week behind. Yes, more than a week, 8 days behind now. So what I've decided to do is graphite. This is an adapted African flower square. So I started off doing an African flower square. I made one, and it was enormous. They come out about this big, so I would have had a blanket the size of a football pitch. It would have been a bit bigger than king size. But I really liked the idea of the African flower. So what I did then was I tried to make another one with a smaller hook, and it reduced it somewhat, but not enough. So then I decided to shorten every stitch. So I'm using a 3.75mm hook, because I couldn't find my 3.5mm hook, I don't know where it's gone, and I need it for lots of projects. I'm going to buy another one. So the inner circle is usually a treble or a double in American terms, and I've done half double crochet, and so basically all the stitches are half double crochet instead of double. Not yeah, treble in English. And normally the flower petal round is 7 stitches, but that made it buckle because everything was shorter and smaller. So I've done 5, which has actually slightly squared off the petals, as you can see. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's still quite nice. So, and the fabric is still somewhat buckly. Well, I don't know, buckly. The petals are popping up, but that's okay. It looks all right. So they actually pop down on the front and they pop up on the back. And so my pattern is to do the low for the day is the center colour, and the high for the day are the petals. And then whether it snowed, rained, or was sunny for more than 5 hours, or cloudy, I put the edge colour. So obviously yellow is sunny for more than 5 hours a day. Grey, a dark, just a mid-grey, is cloudy. And I did start off by doing white for snow, but because I've got a cream background that is just the background, it disappeared and you couldn't see it. So I had to rip back a couple of flowers. So the silver grey is a snow day. So of course I have to choose, because some days it snows and is cloudy or whatever, but more than 5 hours a day sun gets a yellow edge, whether or not it snows or does anything else. And when we get to the season of rain, a pale sky blue is going to be if it rains. So that's the first week, and it's going to be 18 squares wide and 21 long, so it's still going to be quite big. So hopefully over the year I'll show you the progress for that. And luckily the Japan Meteorological Agency keeps its records for all its weather stations, and we've got one in our town. Keeps it forever, and I found our one. It was a bit of a struggle because it's on the Japanese only page, but I found it, and it's got daily records going back to something like 1977, and then it's got general records going back, oh I don't know, years and years. So it was very interesting to look at. So I had a look through the yearly. They also do daily, monthly and yearly tables. So I looked through the monthly table and I just checked through to see what had been the very coldest weather and what had been the very hottest weather, so I could work out my temperature chart. And I've actually just picked up the sample scores were all on the floor, but I picked them up this morning and put them away. But I have a photograph, so I shall put one in and you can see my temperature range. I suspect over the course of the year it's going to turn out fairly orange and ochre and mustardy, but we'll find out. So that's that one. And I'll just have a drink in my beautiful new mug, which I shall talk about in a minute. Right, something else that I said I would start in the winter holidays, back in podcast 1 or 2, along with the socks, which I shall do in the winter holidays, which never came out of their bag. That was a washout. Was the can't remember what it was called. It's the Persian Tiles Eastern Jewels blanket that my friend Claire asked me to make, and I have made a start on it on the very first octagon, and this is as far as I've got, and again, I'm stymied because I can't find my 3.5mm hook, so I'm definitely going to just have to give in and order one, and then I'll find it. I've looked everywhere. I don't have any projects with a 3.5mm hook going at the moment, and I remember the last time I used it and that project bag is empty, so the only thing I can think of is it got dropped in the car or something, or when I was out, I don't know. It's a bit disappointing. Anyway, so beautiful as this project is, and it's going to be fantastic, this has already taken hours, except it's because I'm learning the pattern. And look at all the ends. Every one of these lobes has 2 ends. But it's going to be gorgeous, and this is a labour of love, and I'm learning lots and lots of new things while I'm doing it. And also I'm quite a lazy crocheter. If it's got too many colours, too many ends, too complicated a pattern, I'll pass over it, which means, you know, your volume is good, but perhaps the quality suffers occasionally. I don't know. So there is no way that this could be a commercial endeavour, but equally, as much as I like it, it doesn't suit me. If I made one, I wouldn't really want it in my living room. Well, I would, but it wouldn't suit my living room. So it will absolutely suit my friend's living room that I've seen her living room, and I know it will. It's her colour scheme, or it will be when it's finished. And it will look fantastic there. So it pleases me to know that I can do something that I've actually had a bit of an itch to do for ages, and it has a happy end point, you know, to live in the future. So this is a project with no deadline, and I will just work on it when I have free brain space. This is perhaps my weekend project. I'm trying this year to use weekdays for commissions and weekends for my fun projects, except that at the moment I seem to be quite busy with work and kids' exams and things, so I'm going to have to pay back some of my missed days on the weekend as well. But anyway, so that's living in this bag, and I'll show you as I make progress. My plan is, this is the first octagon that I've done, and there's some squares as well. So what I'm going to do after I've done this octagon, and I know how to do each section because each one's been ripped back multiple times, then the next octagons I'm going to do all the centres, all row 2, all row 3, all row 4, and just change the colours according to the chart, and that way hopefully, you know, I'll be in the rhythm of each section, because at the moment I'm learning a new thing each time I change rows, and then they'll all grow slowly, but they'll all be completed at once, and then I'll have all those ends to do. Now, I'm not doing ends to the end in case I make a mistake and have to go back. So that's that one. So my 2 new projects, my long-term projects for the whole year, the temperature blanket and the tiles blanket. Upcoming things that I need to start quite soon. Somebody's asked me for a hat. I've got some mitts that I was asked for ages ago and haven't got to. Somebody wants a wash mitt. Yeah, so there's quite a few things waiting for me to get going on. So yeah, it's quite an exciting time of the year. I need to do a yarn order before I can get going on some of these things. But my mind is bubbling, and I've got quite a lot of yarn outstanding, stuff that I've been gifted, stuff that I bought in the summer, and I'm starting to have ideas for that as well. So yeah, new year, new start and all that. So the next section is incoming goodies. So my first thing is I've got a new phone. So I had an iPhone 6, it was very nice, I liked it, I've had it for 4 years, but the top corner was slowly darkening about this much into the screen, and even so I thought, well, it doesn't actually affect anything I do, the photographs I take don't have a dark mark on them, it's only on the display, still takes incoming calls, it still does internet, I'm going to keep going with it till it dies. But then a friend of mine said, please don't do that, my phone died and it was very difficult to transfer data and stuff because it was dead and I had to rely on cloud backups and stuff, which she had done, but it was still annoying. So she said, if possible, judge it that you get your new phone before the old phone is completely dead. And then my old phone started going randomly black for no reason. It was fully charged, or at least, you know, 60 or 70%, and it would just go black and unresponsive, and it wouldn't switch off, it wouldn't do anything. And then if I left it, the next time I looked, it would be alive again, but I didn't know why it happened. And it did this 3 times in about 10 days. So I thought, okay, you're telling me you're near the end of the life. So I now have a beautiful shiny iPhone XS, is it? I'm terrified of dropping it or breaking it. It was so expensive. I got it in a big thick shockproof case, and I've got a neck strap because the very first day after I bought it, the first day I took it out, we went on a long walk, and I went to a local shrine, and I took it out, took my gloves off, took it out to take a photograph, and of course my hands were freezing cold, and I dropped it. And luckily, because it was soft snow, it just went and it stood upright in the snow. So there was no damage to it. But when I picked it up, of course it landed bottom first, didn't it? So all its holes and sockets were packed full of snow. And again, luckily, because it was in this big rubbery case, most of it had actually gone into the case holes and not right down into the phone holes, but some had. So I had to take the case off and like shake it out, and oh, it was a luckily this phone is waterproof, so it was all right. But yeah, that was heart stopping. So I'm a bit scared of it. But it's very beautiful, and it takes really, really lovely photographs. I used the new phone for the last video I made. Did you see a difference? I don't know if I did particularly, but it seems brighter. It takes great photographs at night or indoors, really luminous, sharp, lovely pictures. I'm very pleased with that. So hopefully you'll see some quality improvement in my crochet photographs as well. We had a very simple Christmas here. I didn't get an awful lot of presents, but the ones I did were really special. So this is one. This was made for me by a member of a little group that I'm in that means a lot to me. They're my dear friends, and our group name, this is the initials of our group name, but she's changed it. So sharing life's precarious moments and sharing life's precious moments, and that's exactly what we do in that group. So it's a little sort of secret nod to our group, because you wouldn't know, that's not what our group name is. And I absolutely love it, and it's my favourite good green colour inside as well. So I use this daily, and it makes me very happy, and it makes me feel very loved. So that was wonderful, absolutely adore it. And this is another beautiful incoming goodie. My friend Helen gave this to me for Christmas. It's got a little bird on it, can you see? And it's pottery. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is the brooch back on it is tiny. It's only about that long. So I'm a little worried that it might fall off. I'm going to pay attention to where it is and make sure that it hasn't got loose or undone itself. But I find it's a really nice scarf pin. I've been wearing it a lot. It's lovely. Very simple and plain and beautiful. And so apart from that, I went shopping in Sapporo, the main city in Hokkaido, a couple of weeks ago in the holiday. And of course I went to the craft shop, because when do I ever not? I have to say, I don't buy a lot of Japanese yarn now. It's very expensive, very small quantities, and to be honest, very sludgy colours. Not my thing at all. And you know, there's Noro yarn, which is famous for its colour use. But Noro yarn it's very expensive, and it's also quite rough. And I think that now with the all the indie dyers that have started doing the most fabulous colour combinations on the most fabulous bases, even if I was to buy stuff from abroad, if I want something high quality and richly coloured, I'd rather buy something from them. But I was tempted by a few things. So there's a lady who crochets the tiniest, most beautiful things, necklaces and brooches, and she makes some very lovely necklaces that I've seen, and they're all got perfect circles. So I asked her what she uses, and she said she uses these silicone knit rings. She's a very nice person, you know. She's was very willing to tell me how she did it. I don't intend to copy her idea for necklaces or for her necklaces. She has a very specific style, because that would be horrible and mean and stealing. But I do want to start making you know, things, you know, my own idea, but using these rings as a base. So I bought 3 packets of increasingly tiny rings, and then I always go and have a look at the crochet thread sections. I do like crochet thread, and I found these variegated. There's this variegated blue. This one is nice. The one thing I've seen that some foreign American or British people do, colour change, like, you know, it fades thread. And I would like to get hold of some of that, but I've not ever seen it for sale in Japan. I'll have to have a look on the internet. That purple was just a really good colour, couldn't resist it. So those I bought, and then the giant pom-pom maker. I think I'm going to try this in the next few days, but I think that would probably take, well, it says it takes 35 to 50 grams of yarn for one pom-pom. So that's like half a ball of yarn in one pom-pom. So I don't quite know why you would ever use it, but I couldn't resist. It was really fun, and I'm going to perhaps try to make something like a hedgehog or something with it. I don't know, still thinking. Or a giant Christmas pudding. So there were my incoming goodies, and yeah, so not a lot, but all very pleasing, nice things. And the last thing I would like to talk about is podcasts I watch. So a friend of mine, she said to me she didn't know anything about the crochet and knitting and yarn podcasting YouTube world, and when I started doing my first and second one, she of course started getting recommendations to watch other people, and she said, I didn't know any of these people existed, and it's really exciting, and I've been sucked down the rabbit hole of watching YouTube videos, and who do you recommend? So obviously I don't know everybody, and I don't watch everybody, it would be impossible, but I thought that I would start a little section of who do I watch, and just, you know, introduce somebody each time I do a podcast. So today I would like to introduce one person called Blue Cherub 82, and she's a British crocheter, and she lives in the Midlands. So I was very drawn, I am very drawn to her accent. She sounds like my relatives, and she sounds like home to me. So to me she's very easy to watch and makes me feel, yeah, like I'm back home. So it's really nice. And she makes amigurumi, which I don't really, so I love to see what she makes. And she also makes blankets. Well, she does all kinds of things. She makes hats and loads of things. And she also does craft fairs, which I think is very brave. So I've been watching her do craft fairs and thinking, shall I, shan't I? My problem is, if I'm going to do a craft fair, it's got to be all in Japanese. I've got to apply for everything in Japanese. I've got to talk to people all day, and it's all a bit scary. So I think about it and then run away from the thought. And I've had quite a little flurry of new subscribers to my channel. Thank you. Hello. It's very nice, very exciting to see you here. And that's because she mentioned me on a recent podcast. She talked about my 10 non-yarny things podcast, and so some people have come from her to me to have a look at my channel. So thank you very much, and in return, please go, and if you don't know about her, please go and have a look, and if you like what she does, subscribe, because yeah, I find her podcasts really, yeah, nice and interesting. Another thing I like about her podcasts is they're quite short. So she does regular, frequent, short podcasts, which means they're very easy to watch. There's a couple of podcasters that I'll mention later on in other times, and they do fantastic podcasts, but one of them in particular, their podcasts are 2 hours long, and I don't have 2 hours to sit and watch, so I have to watch it in pieces, and then I forget, and then I, you know, and then they put up their new podcast and I realise I was only halfway through the first one. Yeah, so I think regular, frequent, short podcasts is a really nice way to go, rather than infrequent, long ones. So yes, please go and look at her. I've linked her down below in my box, so go and have a look. And I think with that, I'm going to call that an end to my podcast. So it's not frequent, and it's not short, but it's not superly long either, I hope. So the next time I see you, I hope to have significant progress on Shockwaves and Big Blue 2. I'd like to have some more small projects done. And I'd like to be able to tell you that I've been walking even though I've been working. So goodbye for now, and see you next time. Bye!